today, and something that's very unique for law enforcement, and that is not only to open up a cold case, but to open up a cold case and bring on some partners along with us that bring a lot to the table. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. When we're all done this afternoon, our partners with the media will be available. Myself and the rest of the investigative team will be available. If you'd like to speak to anybody on board, you're more than welcome to do that. And the same goes to everybody in the audience. If you have any questions or anything like that, once we're all done with this, we'll have an open Q&A forum. So if you have any questions that you would like to pose on camera here with the group in front of us, please feel free to ask. What I want to do first is I want to introduce our investigative team. To my left, I have Lieutenant Mike Marinella, Newburgh Heights Police Department. Next will be Officer Tom Schrail, Newburgh Heights Police Department. And then we have Captain Richard McIntosh, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office, Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County, retired Cleveland Division of Police. Next, we have retired Detective James Kleppel from the Brooklyn Police Department. And then to his left, we have surviving member of the Sova family, Mr. Kurt Sova. To my right is Professor Michael Lewis from Tiffin University, and to his right are our conglomerate of scholars from Tiffin University. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, identify where they're from, their status in college, and also what their discipline is, because we want you to know what we're bringing to the table with this investigation.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Zisselman. I am from Salina, Ohio. I am a sophomore and I am studying criminalistics and public relations.
I'm Kylie Shreve. I'm from Milan, Ohio. I am a senior at Tiffany University studying forensic psychology and criminalistics.
My name is Dylan Smith. I'm a senior at Tiffany University from Fremont, Ohio, and I'm majoring in law enforcement and counterterrorism.
My name is Lindsay Willis. I am a senior. I'm dual majoring in criminalistics and law enforcement, and I'm from Commerce, Michigan.
I'm Callista Hernader. I'm from Roseville, Indiana. I'm a senior and I double major in criminalistics and forensic psychology.
I'm Anthony Gooddale, a junior at Tiffany University. I'm from Akron, Ohio, and I'm studying criminalistics.
My name is Emily Borson. I am from Holland, Michigan. I am a senior and I am a double major in forensic psychology and law enforcement.
I am Aspen Schmidt. I'm from Willard, Ohio, and I'm a senior at Tiffany University studying criminalistics.
I'm Christine Kramer. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, and I'm a senior at Tiffany University studying forensic psychology and minoring in criminalistics.
Very good, guys, and thank you again. As you can see, we have a lot of academia here in the room, along with a couple hundred years of law enforcement experience that we're going to bring to the table. Next person I want to introduce, I'm going to have him step up here, is Captain McIntosh. He's going to talk about the Crime Stoppers' role in this investigation. Captain?
Kurt Sova was found dead on October 28, 1981. He was last seen alive on October 23, 1981. This case has resulted in national exposure, including a segment on the crime program, Unsolved Mysteries. Although this unsolved case is nearly 40 years in the past, it is ripe with rumors, comments, tips, theories, and internet exposure. This case has proven to be saddled with complex issues and conflicting investigations. A 17-year-old boy died under unusual and still unresolved circumstances. That was Kurt Sova. Kurt Sova's mom and dad died never knowing why their son was found dead in a gravel pit at 32nd and Harvard Avenue. This mysterious death was investigated by the Newburgh Heights Police Department, by the Cleveland Police Department, and the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department over the last 40 years, yet much remains unanswered. At the request of Chief John Majoy, Crime Stoppers and the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department has agreed to partner with Newburgh Heights Police and Tiffin University in a renewed effort to resolve the complexities of this cold case. Recognizing that people that may have information on this case may no longer be available to provide that information, Crime Stoppers is reaching out to those that remain by offering up to $5,000 in reward money for information that can lead to the resolution of this case. There's mysterious surroundings, and Crime Stoppers wants to remind everybody that if you contact us, you remain anonymous. We recognize that witnesses oftentimes hesitate to come forward and be identified, That is why for the past 30 years, Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County has provided an anonymous source, an anonymous way for people to contact law enforcement. You can aid law enforcement without being identified. Anyone with information on this case is urged to contact Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County. And let me remind everybody, even though this case is from 1981, Beverly Potts went missing in 1951. That case was never solved, and yet Crime Stoppers to this day continues to get tips as to how that case developed. So we can help, we want all the tips that we can get, no matter how small you think they are.
Next, I want to introduce Professor Michael Lewis from Tiffin University to describe their role in this investigation and case. Professor?
Thank you, Chief. As a professor, I was able to realize and use our students as a great resource for us. Recently, with the support of the university and the police department, we're proud to have embedded and incorporated 12 students, criminal justice students, to be able to examine the case with a fresh set of eyes and a new lens. At the university, our focus is not only on academics, but also in preparing our students for real-world experiences and for success. We're able to dedicate ourselves to review, analyze, and assist law enforcement with the death investigation of Kurt Sova. Tasks are going to be assigned to our students based off of their specialization regarding analyzing forensics, investigations, media support, and data analytics. I look forward to working collaboratively with the police department.
Thank you, Professor. Just a couple quick comments with respect to the case. When we were looking through, we have a lot of old news stories and newspaper clippings and things like that. There was something that really stood out to me, and one of them was a comment by Dorothy Sova, and that's Kurt's mother, who is now since passed. And she said, "This was my youngest baby. Or my youngest son. This is my baby." And as law enforcement and criminal justice practitioners, we always need to remind ourselves that there is a victim out there. And in this particular case, there was a victim. Now, as Captain McIntosh said, Kurt did go missing, and he was gone for 5 days until his body was found. The coroner's report showed a blood alcohol concentration of 0.11, which we know is not enough to render somebody deceased. However, the autopsy report stated that it was instant physiological death. And by 1981 standards, it doesn't really give us a whole lot to go on. We're not discrediting that report, but we really don't have an official cause of death to say that, yes, he was in fact murdered. We don't know 100% if that was the case. But what we do know from that report is that Kurt was alive during that time, from the time he went missing until the time his body was found. And there are people out there, we feel, that have information, and we want them to come forward. We are offering up to a $5,000 reward, as stated by Captain McIntosh, to Crime Stoppers. We are allowing every type of mechanism. If you want to email us, there's an email address. If you want to contact us through social media, you want to send us a text message, whatever the case is, if you want to stay anonymous, we want to hear from you. We really strongly believe that there are people out there who have information, and we need them to come forward in this case. However, at this time, I'm going to ask Kevin Sova to come up to the podium to speak a little bit about Kurt and their family. And I think it's important to know, Kevin is the sole surviving member of this family. Everybody else has since passed. And in the conversations that he and I have had over the past year, is this was meant to happen. And I think you're going to hear a lot of those comments today and hear how he feels in offering that perspective from his family. And again, this is why we need folks to come forward and talk to us. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kevin Sova up to the stage.
Thank you, Chief. First of all, I'd like to thank the team from Tiffin University, Mike Lewis and his team. I'd like to thank Richard McIntosh from Crime Stoppers and I'd like to thank Chief Majoy from Newburgh Heights. Approximately 6 months ago, I received a call from Chief Majoy in regards to my brother Kurt. At first, I didn't know how to take it. It's been 38 years since my brother died. Was it a hoax? Was it not? I sat down and I talked with Chief Majoy, and he did indeed tell me that this was a real investigation that they'd like to reopen. Now you got to realize most of my mom's life, since Kurt passed away, has been about finding out answers about what happened to my brother, her son Kurt. After my mom passed away, I was left with having to deal with her estate, her home, and I removed everything from the home, and I found boxes and boxes and boxes of information. Little did I know that my mom continued on, since Kurt died, talking to anybody and everybody, because at that time, most of the people had shut down this case. My mom was the only one left alive to take care of it. I met with Chief Majoy, and we started to open up boxes of information that I didn't even know my mom was still following. Pages and pages of information, comments. I woke up this morning at 4:30, and the first thing that came on TV was my mom talking from 1989 about going to her grave if she had to find out about her son. She did go to her grave, and she never found out the answer. I can't believe that I'm standing here today with the team of all the TV crews that want to take an interest in my brother again. For years, we just thought that Kurt became a statistic, like many kids in the area. I never got to see what kind of young man Kurt turned into. He was 17 years old. I was the oldest of the 4 boys. Kurt was the baby, so he got pampered. But he was our comedian. He was our funny guy. But at the time that Kurt was found dead, I was 22, Kurt was 17. There was a 5-year gap. Somebody out there knows what happened to my brother Kurt. We're asking that you come forward. Please give this young team, this police department, everybody in front of us today some information to help find out the truth, whatever it may be. I'm sorry. For the longest time, I have felt the need to put this away, and now that it's back to the forefront again, I'm not best at trying to communicate here. I know there's something went awry in the disappearance of my brother. Somebody out there knows what happened. Please come forward and help us find the truth. Please come forward and give any information that you can. Thank you.
It's a tough one to follow, and believe me. As law enforcement and criminal justice practitioners, it's hard to not see what we just saw. And before just in the last few months, I didn't know anyone from the Sova family, didn't really know a whole lot. Having met Kevin and gotten to know him since then, some of the conversations we had was, as I said, this was meant to happen. And so this is why we have paired up with the team that we have assembled here. A couple things to share about the case that I think is prudent for everybody to know, and that is that we need everybody's help here. Kurt was missing for 5 days. He went to a party with some friends, and at some point during the evening, he went outside. and he was with another individual, and this individual left him outside to go back inside to get their coats. He was gone for just a couple quick minutes. He came back, and Kurt was gone. And that would have been the last time that anyone that we know of had seen him alive until his body was discovered some 5 days later. We believe that there were people at this party that know more than what they said. We believe that there are people out there who have answers to questions. Where was Kurt at during those 5 days? How did Kurt's body end up in this ravine? Somebody knew what happened. Somebody knows what happened. And the time is now for us to come forward, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and try and bring justice to Kurt Sova. As members of the media, we would like to invite you to embed with us and have a seat at the table. When we have future meetings, you are welcome to come, because there were news stories from 1981 and even thereafter. We'd like copies of those. We'd like to know who you guys talked to. But moving forward, we would also like to invite you to be a part of this investigation, because using the theory, none of us are as smart as all of us, perhaps we can all put our heads together, use what resources we all have, and get someone to come forward. There is someone out there who has that information. We need them to come forward. There are plenty of ways for you to contact us to come forward with this information, and we cannot reiterate enough, we need you to come forward. At this time, we'll take any questions from the media and or the audience if you have them.
Chief, there was a time lapse. He was last seen outside the party. The coroner ruled that he didn't die until probably 3 or 4 days later. Any plausible explanation to that, or is that time frame really critical?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul, and thank you for asking that. As you guys know, this case was shown on Unsolved Mysteries. Now, Unsolved Mysteries is a good way of getting it out there. They did a reenactment. What you also have to understand is that may not have been an 100% accurate depiction. And we're not diminishing this by any means, because every part of this investigation is a piece of the puzzle, as if it were a 1,500-piece jigsaw puzzle. So every little piece counts. That time frame is critical, because there were mixed reports. There were reports that he got into a van with someone by the name of Franco. Well, we don't know if Franco's a first name. We don't know if Franco's a last name. And we don't even know if that happened or not. And so, again, from our purview, this investigation is wide open. We are considering all avenues and all options. That time frame is in fact critical, because the coroner did rule that he had been deceased for 24 to 36 hours. That does not explain the preceding 72 hours. Where was he during that time? Who was he with? When he was found, 17-year-old boy, he's got to come home. He's got to shower. He's got to eat. Where was he at during that time? We don't know. And that is critical. Someone, if he was in fact alive, someone saw him. He was with somebody. And that somebody needs to come forward. That somebody needs to say something. We need to know this information. And again, we have an autopsy report that doesn't say homicide on it. Cause of death is not homicide. We have that. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't a crime. What that means is that he did in fact pass away from unknown causes, if you will. Instant physiological death. His heart stopped beating, but we don't know how he got there. There was no excessive wounds to the body. There was no choking. There was no stabbing. There was certainly no shooting. There wasn't any smoking gun that said, hey, this is how this boy died. We don't have that. But we firmly believe that there are people that know what happened. And I don't want to throw any theories out there, because I don't want to plant any seeds, but you guys, we've got a room full of smart people here. You can think of a lot of different avenues that this thing can go.
Mrs. Sova's diligence, do you see anything substantive in that?
I do. By all accounts, I'd probably hire her today, because she's pretty thorough. But as any loving, caring mother would be, they should be. She said in the newspaper, this is my baby. And sadly, she was not reunited with him or found out what happened until she passed. We have boxes of information, handwritten notes that she kept that would shame a lot of investigators, frankly, with the amount of time and energy that she put into this. I would have liked to have met her. I think that she made it her life mission to do that, as any good mother will do. I know that Kevin and I have had a number of conversations, and frankly, he was kind of surprised with it as well. None of us ever want to have to go through a situation like this where we lose a loved one, especially under situations like this, and just not knowing whatever happened. And that is the tragic part of this, that she had to go to her grave not knowing what happened. But on a positive yet favorable note is that, again, look at what we have up here and look what we have out there. We've got people that want to know, and we've got people that are willing to pool themselves together to get this information out there and find out who's got that key. Mark?
Technology's obviously changed a lot relative to physical evidence. Is there any physical evidence available?
So, again, we're looking at a number of different options. We've kind of drawn a semi-conclusion that science and technology are probably not going to help us immensely on this. It doesn't appear as though there's going to be any DNA evidence or serology or any other related technologies. Now, such as not to say that we're ruling this out, because that is not the case. Everything is on the table and everything's wide open. As you heard over here, you've got criminalistics, you've got forensic psychology, you've got law enforcement, you've got a lot of different disciplines who are studying current trends and so on and so forth. So this is why we bring this to the table, because we have a fresh set of eyes to look at things. And we had a meeting this morning we're talking about it, and I explained to them, I said, you've never had somebody spit in your face while you're handcuffing them and run from you. We're trying to arrest them. So you have a fresh, entry-level view with a vast amount of education coming in behind you to help bring things to the forefront. So, but again, back to your original question, some of the original evidence does in fact still exist. However, on the scale of prioritization, it is our opinion that one of the major keys to this is an individual who knows something.
And what sparked the relationship between you and Tiffin, and specifically with this case? Was it they came to you and said, we'd be willing to lend because we knew of the case, or you flagged it for them? Maybe just detail that.
Sure. As a graduate of Tiffin University with my graduate degree, and knowing Professor Mike Lewis, Mike has an extensive law enforcement background, and actually he deserves all the credit because he's the one who approached me and said, hey, are you familiar with this case? Well, having moved from our old facility to the new facility, I recall a box that said Sova case on it, and we did in fact move all the evidence from A to B. And so slowly but surely a conversation ensued as far as, hey, what do you think about taking a fresh approach to this? And from an administrative standpoint as a chief of police, I have to look at allocation of resources, and I have to go and look at whatever in the investigation is and say, what is the solvability factor of this? And if I thought that there was not an option that we would not be able to solve this, we wouldn't be here today. But after myself, Professor Lewis, Lieutenant Marinello, Officer Shrell, we took a very, very comprehensive look at this case and said, listen, we think that there's some substance here. We think that there is information out there in the world that is worth gathering. So that is how the whole thing is commenced. And I did travel down to the university a couple weeks ago, met with the students. These students were hand-selected. They went through a vetting process. We had interviews with each one of them, almost like a job interview. And a couple of the key questions are you willing to commit to this? Because this is not just something that is going to be one day and gone. This is basically a 6-month commitment that we want from these folks. And we've already started sharing information. We've shared some videos, some interviews with them. This morning we had about a 90-minute tabletop conversation. They brought some really good questions. I'm very thoroughly impressed with them so far and very eager to see how the trail takes us.
Chief, my question was just, why now? What prompted you to want to reopen this case?
Sure. Thanks, Matt, for asking that. So I think that when you look at a case like this, there's many things to consider, and that is, and we pondered this for a while, and that is, how do we contact the family? In other words, Kevin Sova didn't wake up that morning saying, well, I wonder if the police are going to call me about my brother's death that happened 37, 38 years ago. This was an out-of-the-blue call. And we pondered this because most of us in law enforcement, we've never had to make that phone call. We've made, death announcements and delivered some unpleasant news to people, some good news to some people. But in a case like this, we pondered this. What's the best way to approach this? Because some families, as you know, may want to just let sleeping dogs lie. And we respect that. And in this particular case, Professor Lewis and I, we talked about it. And we thought, you know what, let's just reach out and see what happens. Because had we not had the support of the Sova family, I don't know that we would have been able to move forward here. Their involvement and his involvement and all his family and friends who are here today is critical to this because we need their support. And our dog in the fight is, as I said earlier, our dog in the fight is justice for Kurt Sova. It's a 17-year-old kid who died under unusual circumstances, and his body was left to lay out in some ravine for 3 kids who were out playing to find. And so keeping that in the back of our minds, why now? I don't know that there's a good answer for why now, but perhaps this was meant to be, that the time is right, and things have fallen into place where we've got cooperation from the Sova family here. We have detectives who bring many, many years of experience to the table. We've got eager officers with our department who want to play a role. And again, we've got very, very highly educated students here in the room who are willing to put forth the effort to do the right thing in this case. That help?
Just so there wasn't like a specific piece of new evidence or a specific tip.
Correct. There was nothing that came forward. There had been a little bit of scuttle on the internet here and there. Every now and then it would come up to the top, and there would be people that would make comments on this, just like the case from 1951 that Captain McIntosh talked about. There was from time to time different things, but there was no one acute incident that says, hey, now is the time, we have this new piece of information. But again, going through what we had, we figured, you know what, now is the time. There is enough motivation by the team, and we do feel as though there's information out there. Now, some of the parties whose names are in the report have since passed away, and that does not help the investigation. So we don't want to continue to wait until others may pass away and take this information with them. Because again, we feel as though there was somebody who was at this party who knew something. There was somebody who was there. There was somebody who saw something. And there's someone who said something to somebody, and that information is out there, and that's what we need to do. We need to get out there, and we need to find that person, and we need to bring them forward.
Professor, can you tell us how you plan to attack this case? What are you going to be looking for? What are you going to be focusing on?
Yes, the students are going to review all the files, all the evidence, and break it down and analyze it, and then also just do data analytics. Present the information that they find to law enforcement, and collectively, hopefully, come up with, some solutions to the case.
Tell me a little bit about data analytics.
So what we're going to do is research the case from the start to the finish, and do some composites and make some assumptions, and then present it to law enforcement. No, not really. Anything that we could come up with that's already in the files.
What brought this case to your attention? What made you approach the chief about wanting to take another look at this?
Yeah, from a research perspective, this is very unique, and it's been an old case. I started looking and talking with the chief about this, just to see if there was any solvability factors to this, and we quickly determined that there was. So more from a research perspective that we could talk to our students with.
Has the university done anything like this before? Any other cases?
No, not at all.
Maybe just go back and look at maybe people of interest from that era, from that time period that were not connected to a crime, but maybe were under suspicion?
So, yes, we will review files, reports, and different things like that were associated with the initial investigation.
Chief, are any of the original detectives still around?
Yes, there are, and I'm going to tailor your question to Paul's question, and with respect to the role of the students, because while we are doing a Facebook Live, I don't know how to do that, so I gave my phone to one of them and said, hey, can you hook me up here and be a friend and give us a Facebook Live? So there are a number of things that they can bring to the table. And we did speak with a former investigator, and we've started this process. And the students, as I said, they bring a fresh set of eyes. And so based upon their educational background, there are certain things of the investigation that we can share with them. Now, there are going to be some proprietary things that are law enforcement sensitive that can't go to the students, and we understand that. They respect that. And so utilizing this utility, if you will, having these kids on board, these students on board, sorry. Gray hair makes you a little bit older, and you've heard of people younger than you as kids. Paul knows that. He's laughing with me. So, but their perspective that they bring, and again, as Professor Lewis stated, there's information out there on the internet. There's people talking on the internet about this. And so what you have to do in the world of criminal justice is assign a cumulative value to, one person says X, one person says Y, one person says Z. What's the value in that? And just kind of take it from there, because in Dorothy Sova's case file that she had received letters from all over the country, people that had seen this. Unsolved Mysteries had a tip line where they basically cataloged all of the tips that they received after the airing of the show, and it had aired a couple times, as you know, and processed those and basically assign a value to those. A 10 being very high with a 1 being very low, and then putting all that together. So switching gears over to Paul's question. We have spoken with a former investigator to get some perspective. We would like to speak to some of the former police officers. We don't know where they're all at. So if they're hearing us right now and they hear this message, please call us. We need to talk to you. That perspective there, we've taken the notes and the video from that interview, and we've shared it with the students because we want them to take a look at it. Again, fresh set of eyes. What is your perspective on this? Do you want to come up? Let's go up here to the microphone. Do you want to Kurt's personality?
What do you like? Something that might give us a sense of where he might have gone and who he might have gone.
Kurt's personality. Kurt was the youngest of 4 brothers, so he tried to follow all of us. His personality was he was very outgoing. He was a comedian. He was just getting going in his life. At 17 years old, he was just beginning to find out which direction he may or may not want to go in. He was very good in sports. He was very good in drawing. He had a very artistic background. He was mechanically inclined. He was a good kid. He helped older people in the neighborhood. He was one of the ones that would stick around, shovel snow for the people. I mean, that's how we were raised. We weren't raised with a lot, but we were raised to help each other. Not to get the opportunity to grow up with my brother, it's hard to explain after all these years. He was just a great kid. He had many, many friends. Some of them are here, some of them I haven't seen in 30 years. When this came to light again, I had people reach out to me that I didn't even see since Kurt's funeral. They're like, it's long overdue. This is long overdue to find the answers of why Kurt is no longer here. That's all we want is the answer, whatever it happens, whatever it tells us. We just want to know the truth about what happened to my brother Kurt.
Do you know the party seems to be the focus? Did you know a lot of the people at that party, or?
Not really.
Was that like his friends? It was just like a friend of a friend kind of thing?
I think it was more a friend of a friend. Kurt's best friend in life is right here in New Orleans, John Miller. Today, he's like my younger brother Kurt, incarnated in the body of John Miller. We talk all the time. He calls me on Kurt's birthday. He started hanging around with different people. He was becoming from a little kid to a teenager to a young man. So his circle of friends had begun to change. Did I know about this party? No. Did I know anybody at the party? No.
Did you always believe that it was suspicious, so that it wasn't something that he did to himself, it was something that somebody else partook in?
Well, yeah, it was suspicious to the point that he disappeared on Friday. They found him on Wednesday. He was supposedly dead 12 to 24 hours. I always wondered, If he was with somebody, why didn't they try to help him? In the possible 3 days that he was alive, what happened? We never were able to put them pieces together, and all we want to do is put the pieces together. It will never bring Kurt back. Nothing that transpires after today will bring him back. It won't bring my mom back, my dad back, my two brothers back. But at least we'll be able to have some answers. My family deserves that. We deserve to know what happened to him. Well, however it turns out, if whether it was at his hands or the hands of somebody else, I just want to know what happened.
Do you think his outgoing, friendly nature might have put him in danger or harm's way in some fashion?
I mean, possibly it could have put all of us in danger. But we grew up rough. Kurt knew how to take care of himself. One-on-one, I'd put him against anybody in this room. He wasn't timid, but he didn't have a choice. He had three brothers beating on him growing up. I mean, how could he not be tough? And then he had mom always protecting him. And she protected him to the day she died. Almost December 5th, 2014, my mom passed away. Almost 5 years to the day. There's a reason this is starting again, and I firmly believe it's from above. I firmly believe it's my mom. And God intervened, and it's just time to find out what happened. And here's our next, this is our future. This may be the beginning of something great. Let all these kids with their young minds and their wealth and their energy come out and help us. We're getting old. I'm 60 years old now. I can't do what I can do when I was their age. Let them help. Maybe this is the new way to do things. If it helps one, it's a start.
Any other questions from the public or media? John?
In this, the boxes from his mother's house, is there anything in there that would benefit you guys to see what you avenue left to lead? Or?
There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there. And again, that's why we have these folks here to decipher that. And, you know, as I told you from day one, a criminal investigation is like a 1,500 jigsaw puzzle. And when you put together a 1,500-piece jigsaw puzzle, you may have lost a piece here and there, but when it's all done, you can still see what it is. In this particular case, every little piece of information is a piece of that puzzle. And that's what we are hoping on, is to put all those together. And with their help, with your help, and with their skills and their investigation, we think we can do that. Question in the back, ma'am?
Yes, please. Have you gone back to review, say, that weekend time as to what the temperature was both day and night to evaluate what that would have happened in a line of exposure to someone staying outside, possibly for that duration?
Sure, that's a very good question. The answer to that is yes. In fact, we have gone and retrieved weather reports from that week in October. By some of the statements that we reviewed, the night that Kurt went missing, he was at a party and it was very cold outside.
You know specifically what the temperature was?
Right off the top of my head, I can't state exactly what the temperature was. What I can tell you, though, is that we didn't, in fact, we do have those weather reports. I'm sorry?
You do?
We do have those weather reports. Matter of fact, Officer Schrail is the one who had actually retrieved those quite some time ago, and that's part of the case file. But again, we do know that that particular night that Kurt was reportedly walking up and down the driveway with a friend because they were cold. They were trying to keep warm. They had jeans and a T-shirt on, and in fact, that's how he was found, in that same pair of jeans and a T-shirt. He was missing a shoe. There was another shoe that was found about 10 to 12 feet away from his body. How it got there, we're unsure. Is it possible that it fell off while he was being dragged? Quite possible. But again, every piece of evidence is yet another piece of the puzzle.
And if I might add, have you also included the realm of passing of Eugene Vet during that same time period, let's say? Had you compared suspects or anything of information that would tie the two cases together?
Sure. For everybody else in the room, the Eugene Cavett case was death of I believe a 13-year-old boy. who had died and was found also with one shoe. His death was a part of the case file. There were substantial notes with respect to that. What we do know is that there were a number of names that were in fact thrown out there. However, that case, to my knowledge, is still unsolved to this day. Are there commonalities that exist between the two of them? There are. Do we feel as though they're related? We've not ruled that out. And so our goal is to try to follow the path that this investigation will take. If this investigation starts to take a turn to where we're getting information towards that case, that's where we're going. If it turns towards any other cases, that's where we're going. We're going to follow the leads to whatever path it takes us. And if we got to reach out to additional partners, Sheriff Schilling has already committed an officer from his agency to join on board with our team. That's an additional resource. We're going to take things where they go, and then we're going to see what happens. We feel confident, again, that information's out there. We just need some folks to come forward with it. Any other questions from anybody in the room at all? Okay, just a couple quick closing comments for our media partners. Again, I want to extend that courtesy invitation. If your respective station will allow you to do that and you wish to do that, please see me individually. And any member of our team here behind me will be available to speak to you one-on-one. If you have questions, just pull us off to the side. We can go into another room, whatever we got to do. But I cannot stress enough how much we thank everybody in this room for being here today, because you guys are one of our resources, and we can't thank you enough for the assistance that you are providing us now, and hopefully will continue to provide us. So thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your days.
That's what brought it all together.
Well, they do like this.